My name is Zoya, and the day I walked out of my father's house was the day he realized I was never coming back. He called me that night. 17 missed calls, each one more desperate than the last. But I didn't pick up. I couldn't. Because for the first time in my 23 years, I was finally free. Have you ever been invisible to the people who were supposed to see you most? Let me back up. I was born with cerebral palsy, mild, but enough that my left leg drags slightly when I walk, enough that my left hand trembles when I'm tired or stressed. My mother died when I was 6, and after that, it was just me and my father in that 3-bedroom house that always smelled like stale cigarettes and disappointment. He never remarried. He said it was because he wanted to focus on raising me, but I think the truth was simpler. No woman would have stayed. My father, Rashid Khan, was a government clerk who believed the world owed him more than it gave. He was bitter about his station in life, about his dead wife, about having a daughter who limped. He never said it directly, but I felt it in every sigh, every bi-erded glance, every time he introduced me to relatives with an apologetic tone. I was his burden, his cross to bear, his proof that God had been unfair to him. I learned early to make myself useful. I cooked, cleaned, managed the household accounts. I studied hard, got good grades, hoping that academic success might earn me something that felt like love. It didn't. When I graduated top of my class from high school, he didn't come to the ceremony. He said he had a headache. When I got accepted into college on a scholarship, full tuition, merit-based, he told me college was a waste of time for a girl who would never marry anyway. But I went. I fought for it. I took the admission, chose computer science, and for 3 years, I commuted 2 hours each way by bus because he refused to help with transportation. He said if I wanted to waste time on education, I could do it on my own dime. So I did. I worked part-time doing data entry, saved every rupee, bought a secondhand laptop, and taught myself coding beyond what the curriculum offered. I was good at it, really good. Patterns, logic, problem solving. My mind worked in ways that made programming feel natural. In my final year, something changed. I landed an internship at a tech startup in the city, small company, but they paid decently and actually valued my work. My supervisor, Amina, was the first person who ever looked at me and saw capability instead of disability. She encouraged me to apply for full-time positions after graduation, helped me build my portfolio, wrote me recommendations. For the first time, I could see a future that didn't involve being trapped in my father's house forever. That's when my father's behavior shifted. He started calling me during work hours, demanding I come home immediately for trivial things. He needed lunch, he needed company, he needed me to file some paperwork. When I explained I was at work and couldn't leave, he'd guilt me. I raised you alone, Zoya. I sacrificed everything. And now you can't even spare time for your old father? I tried to balance both. I'd rush home after work, cook dinner, do the chores, then stay up until 2 in the morning working on freelance projects to save money. I was exhausted, running on 4 hours of sleep, but graduation was close. Just a few more months, I told myself. Then I'd get a full-time job, save enough for a deposit, and find my own place. I graduated in May, third in my class with multiple job offers. I chose a position at a mid-sized software company, good salary, health benefits, opportunity for growth. I was supposed to start in July. I was 22 years old, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. That's when my father told me about the proposal. It was a Tuesday evening. I came home from signing my employment contract, excited to share the news, and found him sitting in the living room with another man, older, maybe 50, with a greasy smile and eyes that lingered too long on my body, despite my loose kurta and dupatta. Zoya, my father said, this is Mahmood Sahib. He's a distant cousin of your mother's. He's proposed marriage. I froze. What? Mahmoud smiled wider. Your father has told me all about you. You're a good girl, educated, knows how to manage a household. My first wife passed away last year, and my children need a mother. His children. He had 3 kids, the youngest was 12. He wanted a caretaker, a servant he could marry to make it halal. I looked at my father. You can't be serious. It's a good proposal, my father said. His voice was flat, final. Mahmoud Sahib has a stable business, a good home. You'll be taken care of. I have a job, I said, my voice shaking. I start next month. I'm not getting married. My father's expression hardened. The job is not important. This is your future, Zoya. Do you think you'll get many proposals? Look at yourself. Mahmoud Sahib is willing to overlook your condition. You should be grateful. That word, condition, landed like a slap. I had heard it before, whispered by relatives, thrown casually by strangers, but never from my father's mouth so nakedly, so cruelly. I'm not marrying him, I said. I'm starting my job and I'm moving out. The room went silent. Mahmoud cleared his throat awkwardly and excused himself, sensing the confrontation. After he left, my father stood up slowly. I'd seen him angry before, but this was different. This was cold. You will not disrespect me like this, he said quietly. You will not throw away a decent proposal because of your arrogance. I have fed you, clothed you, raised you alone. Everything you have is because of me. Everything I have is despite you, I said, and I meant it. His hand moved faster than I expected. The slap caught me across the face, hard enough that I stumbled. My bad leg gave out, and I fell, hitting the floor with a jarring thud. My cheek burned. My eyes watered, but I refused to cry. You will marry Mahmoud, he said, standing over me, or you will leave this house with nothing. No money, no documents, nothing. Let's see how far you get then. I looked up at him from the floor, tasting blood from where my teeth had cut my lip, and something inside me went completely still. This was it, the line, the moment. I had spent my whole life trying to earn love from a man who was incapable of giving it, trying to be good enough, useful enough, invisible enough. And it had gotten me exactly here, on the floor, being bartered off like damaged goods. Okay, I said quietly. He blinked, surprised by my compliance. Good. We'll finalize everything this week. I stood up slowly, my leg protesting, and went to my room. I locked the door, sat on my bed, and started planning. I had 3 weeks until my job started. 3 weeks to escape. But he'd threatened to keep my documents. My ID card, my academic certificates, my bank information. I needed those. Without them, I couldn't work, couldn't rent an apartment, couldn't exist legally as an independent adult. That night while my father slept, I went through his room. He kept important papers in a locked drawer in his desk. I knew where he hid the key, inside an old tobacco tin on the top shelf of his closet. My hands shook as I unlocked the drawer. Inside, I found everything. My birth certificate, my national ID card, my academic transcripts, even my mother's jewelry that I'd thought he'd sold years ago. I took it all, every document with my name on it. I left his papers untouched. I wasn't trying to hurt him, just free myself. I hid everything in a waterproof folder inside my college backpack. The next morning, I acted normal. I cooked breakfast, served him tea, smiled when he mentioned wedding preparations. He thought he'd broken me, that the slap had reminded me of my place. He didn't know that every compliance was strategic. Every smile was armor. I contacted Amina, my former supervisor. I explained everything: the forced marriage, my father's control, my need to leave quickly. She didn't hesitate. You can stay with me, she said. I have a spare room. Stay as long as you need. I researched my rights. In Pakistan, a woman over 18 couldn't be forced into marriage. If I could get to the police, file a report, I'd have legal protection. But I also knew how these things worked. My father had connections, friends in bureaucracy. A police report might not be enough if he decided to escalate. I needed more than escape. I needed insurance. So I documented everything. Every time he mentioned the marriage, I recorded it on my phone. Every threat, every manipulation, every time he told me I was worthless without him. I saved text messages from Mahmoud's number, messages my father had sent on my behalf without my knowledge, agreeing to the proposal, setting dates. I photographed the bruise on my face from where he'd hit me. I built a case, evidence, truth in its most undeniable form. 2 days before Mahmoud was supposed to come for a formal engagement ceremony, I packed a single bag. One change of clothes, my laptop, my documents, my mother's jewelry, and my phone with all the recordings. I waited until my father left for work. Then I walked out. I took a bus to Amina's apartment. She opened the door and immediately pulled me into a hug. I didn't cry. I was too numb for that. But I felt something loosen in my chest. Safety. For the first time in years, I felt safe. That evening, my father came home to an empty house. No dinner cooking, no Zoya waiting. He called my phone. I watched it ring and didn't answer. He called 17 times, each call more frantic. He left voicemails, first angry, demanding I return immediately, then confused, asking where I was, then desperate, pleading, saying we could talk, that he hadn't meant to hit me, that we could find another solution. But there was no other solution. There was only freedom or captivity, and I'd made my choice. The next day, I went to the police station with Amina. I filed a report. Attempted forced marriage, domestic violence, coercion. The officer was skeptical at first until I played the recordings. My father's voice clear as day. You'll marry him or leave with nothing. His threats, his violence, all documented, time-stamped, undeniable. The officer's expression changed. He took my statement seriously, filed the report, and assured me I was within my rights to refuse the marriage and live independently. He gave me a copy of the report and advised me to keep it with me in case my father tried to claim I'd been kidnapped or had run away. I started my job the following week. My colleagues had no idea what I'd just escaped from. I showed up on time, did excellent work, and slowly started building a life that was entirely mine. Amina helped me find an affordable apartment near the office. I bought a few pieces of furniture, set up my space, and for the first time in my life, I lived in a home where no one sighed when I entered the room. My father tried everything. He showed up at my workplace once, demanding to speak to me. Security escorted him out after I showed them the police report and explained he was harassing me. He sent relatives to talk sense into me. I refused to meet with them. He tried to freeze my bank account. I'd already opened a new one in a different bank. He claimed to relatives that I'd abandoned him in his old age, that I was an ungrateful daughter who'd betrayed her duty. The story spread through our extended family, and I lost several relatives who sided with him. Some called me selfish, some said I dishonored the family. A few aunts tried to guilt me, saying a daughter's place was with her father until marriage. But I also found allies I didn't expect. A cousin who'd escaped a similar situation years ago reached out to offer support. Old teachers who'd known my mother told me she'd have been proud. Amina's friends became my friends. And slowly, I built a chosen family that saw me as whole, valuable, capable. 6 months after I left, my father had a health scare. Nothing serious, but enough that he was hospitalized for a few days. The relatives who defended him suddenly remembered I existed. They called, saying he was asking for me, that I should visit, that he was my father after all, and family was family. I thought about it. Part of me, the part that had spent 23 years trying to be good enough, felt guilty. But then I remembered his hand across my face, his willingness to sell me off to a man old enough to be my father, his lifelong refusal to see me as anything other than a burden. I sent flowers to the hospital with a card. Wishing you a full recovery. Zoya. I didn't visit. He was discharged after a week and life went on. My career progressed. I got promoted after 8 months. Team lead with a salary increase that would have seemed impossible 2 years ago. I started mentoring other young women in tech, particularly those with disabilities. I wanted them to know what I'd learned the hard way. Your worth is not determined by other people's limited imagination. A year after I left, my father's younger brother, my uncle Tariq, reached out. Unlike the others, he didn't lecture me. He asked if we could meet for tea. I agreed cautiously. We met at a cafe near my apartment. Uncle Tariq looked older than I remembered, tired. He ordered chai and was quiet for a moment before speaking. "Your father is not well," he said. "Not physically. The doctors say he's fine. But mentally, emotionally. He sits in that house alone, barely eats, doesn't talk to anyone. He's told me he regrets everything." I sipped my tea. "Regret isn't the same as change." Uncle Tariq nodded. "You're right, but he's my brother, and I can't stand to see him like this. He's too proud to say it, but he knows he was wrong. He knows he lost you because of his own cruelty." "He didn't lose me," I said quietly. "He threw me away. There's a difference." "Will you ever forgive him?" I thought about that question for a long time. Forgiveness. What did that even mean? Was it about absolving him of guilt? About pretending the past didn't happen? About rebuilding a relationship on the ruins of a broken one? "I don't know," I said finally. "Maybe someday. But forgiveness isn't something he can demand or guilt me into. If it happens, it'll be on my terms, in my time. And it doesn't mean I'll ever go back to being his daughter the way I was before. That version of me, the one who tried so hard to be good enough, she's gone. She had to die so I could live." Uncle Tariq accepted that. He didn't push. Before we parted, he told me my father had kept my room exactly as I'd left it, like a shrine to a ghost. I didn't know what to do with that information. 2 years after I left, I got a promotion to senior developer. My team had grown, and I was leading projects that impacted thousands of users. I bought a small apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was mine, legally, officially. I planted herbs on the balcony and adopted a cat named Biryani who had a crooked tail and a loud purr. I dated occasionally, though I was cautious. I'd learned that not everyone could handle my independence, and I refused to shrink myself to make someone comfortable. I'd rather be alone and whole than partnered and diminished. My father never called again after those first 17 missed calls. But 3 years after I left, I received a letter. Handwritten, my name on the envelope in his familiar cramped script. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. The letter was short. "Zoya, I have spent 3 years in this house alone, and in that silence, I have heard echoes of every cruel word I ever spoke to you. You were right to leave. You were right about all of it. I told myself I was preparing you for a harsh world, that I was being realistic about your limitations. But the truth is, I was the one who was limited. Limited in imagination, in compassion, in the ability to see my own daughter as anything other than a reflection of my failures. You prove me wrong in every way. I hear about your success from Tariq, who keeps track even when I pretend not to care. I know you've built a life, a career, a future I said was impossible. I am not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I am not asking you to come back. I know that ship has sailed. I am only writing to say, I was wrong. You were never a burden. You were never broken. The only thing broken was my ability to see the remarkable person right in front of me. I am proud of you, Zoya. I should have said that every day of your life, and I never did. So I'm saying it now, even if it's too late. I am proud of you. Your father." I read the letter 3 times, sitting on my balcony with biryani curled in my lap. I cried, finally. Not from pain, but from the release of a weight I hadn't realized I was still carrying. It wasn't the apology that moved me, it was the acknowledgement, the admission of truth. I never responded to the letter. I kept it in a drawer with my mother's jewelry, two artifacts from a past I'd survived, but didn't need to resurrect. 4 years after I left, I spoke at a tech conference about accessibility in software development. The audience was large, and after the talk, a young woman approached me, maybe 19, walking with crutches, eyes bright with determination. "I'm starting university next year," she said. "Computer science. Everyone in my family thinks I'm wasting my time, that I should stay home. Your talk? It made me feel like maybe I can actually do this." I looked at her and saw myself at that age, hungry for possibility, terrified of limitations, desperate for someone to say you can. "You can," I told her, "and you will. And when your family doubts you, remember that their doubt is about their fear, not your capability. Don't let anyone else's limited vision become your ceiling." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and thanked me. As she walked away, I thought about my father sitting alone in that house, about the 17 missed calls, about the letter in my drawer. Revenge, I realized, wasn't about making him suffer. Suffering had found him all on its own in the form of consequences and loneliness. Real revenge, the kind that healed rather than poisoned, was this: building a life so full, so successful, so undeniably mine, that his predictions crumbled to dust. He said I'd never survive without him. I thrived. He said I'd never marry, as if that was the worst fate imaginable. I chose not to define my worth by someone else's desire for me. He said my disability made me a burden. I turned it into perspective, empathy, resilience, qualities that made me better at my job, better at helping others, better at being human. That evening, 5 years after I walked out with one bag and 17 missed calls, I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset paint the city gold. Biryani purred beside me. My apartment smelled like the biryani I was cooking, a recipe I'd perfected over the years, better than anything I'd made in my father's kitchen. My phone buzzed. A message from the young woman I'd met at the conference. "I got my admission letter. Thank you for showing me it was possible." I smiled, typed back congratulations, and set my phone down. Freedom tastes like this, I thought. Like safety, like choice, like a future you built with your own hands. It tastes like sunset on your own balcony and a dinner you cooked because you wanted to, not because someone demanded it. And sometimes, the sweetest revenge is simply living well, not to prove something to the people who doubted you, but to honor the person you always were beneath their limitations. Because in the end, I didn't escape my father's control. I outgrew it, and that made all the difference.